This webinar is made possible by the Sentio Marriage and Family Therapy Program. Visit us at www.sentio.org.
Welcome today to our webinar on deliberate practice supervision, a primer. I'm very, very happy to have my colleagues and friends, Alycia and Ariana here. Why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves and we'll get rolling.
I'm Alycia O'Connell, so I live in Oregon and am licensed in Oregon and Washington, and so provide supervision for both. And I just completed last year the residency in deliberate practice.
Hi everyone, I'm Ariana Lloyd. I live in Washington State. I'm licensed in Oregon and Washington as well. I have a private practice that specializes in clinical supervision, and Alycia and I completed the Sentio Supervision residency together.
Fantastic. All right. Welcome everybody. And when you're arriving, if you could just put yourself in the chat where you're from. Good to see you. Okay, and we are going to dive in here we met Ariana and Alycia, and I'm Jason Brand, and just a little bit, a quick primer on what offerings we have at Sentio. We have lots of going on in terms of deliberate practice supervision. We've got our monthly deliberate practice consultation group. It's 1 hour, small group via Zoom. Check that out on the website. There's an introductory certification course that you can take, 4 sessions, an hour each, and really well done by my colleague Alexandra Vaj. Those are going to start again in January. And then we have our supervision residency, which is if you're going to want to take a deep dive into all this stuff. It's a 1-year intensive mentoring where you really, you get this, you get it all. We're going to get into it, but it's a fantastic program, 50 hours, DP coaching, and working live with people and getting supervision, California and Washington. Check it out. Okay, let's start with, let's see, where are we here? Whoops, sorry. So you're here, we're talking about deliberate practice supervision, and let's just start with the research on supervision and deliberate practice supervision. So therapists do not necessarily get better with more years of experience, which is this crazy idea that completely rocked my world when I started looking into this research. And the research goes back decades. And what it really shows is that for most of us therapists, without consistent training, that we actually kind of plateau, that we don't get better. And the craziest part about it is that actually with what we're going to call traditional supervision and training, that doesn't even really impact the outcome of us getting better, of us becoming more effective in what we do. So what I found really shocking about this, probably not a surprise actually when you hear it, but that there's a self-perception gap, which is that most therapists, if you ask them, hey, am I getting better at becoming a therapist? Are my clients getting better? Am I having more effective outcomes? The self-perception really doesn't match the research outcomes. So that is the bad news. And that is the, one thing that the field has starting to really do a deep dive on and think about. And so that enters expertise research, which is really the field that came up with this idea of deliberate practice. And it doesn't come out of therapy, which is interesting. It comes out of a field called expertise research. And what they did is they started with musicians, and they started with athletes, and they looked at the Kobe Bryants, the Michael Jordans, the Yo-Yo Ma's. They looked at the top performers in these fields, and they asked this question: is how did they become super athletes, or how did they become super musicians? And what they found is that it's actually they have a way of practicing, a way of preparing themselves that we're going to get into today. That preparation that actually allows them to be light years ahead of others. So it takes them above. So it's not this thing, you're not born Kobe Bryant, or you're not, certainly there are attributes that allow you to be that way, but it's really through the practice. And that's what's exciting about deliberate practice, is that we don't all necessarily have to become super shrinks, but we can certainly improve in our field and have a way of actually doing that. So there's research, and it is a new field, and the over the last basically 25 years, the research has been coming back, and it confirms that DP informed training, structured rehearsal with specific feedback, which we're going to talk about, produces greater skill acquisition and measurable improvement compared to traditional supervision. So in deliberate practice, we like to make the distinction, and this is sort of what a lot of the understanding, if you're going to take one thing out of today, conceptually, that you're going to walk away with, it's this idea that conceptual does not equal procedural. Now, what does that mean? Especially when it comes to deliberate practice training for psychotherapy. What it means is that we have, in certain ways, overtrained our conceptual muscles, right? So you can see the picture there of the person with their iPad and studying. So conceptual is, you get that through watching films. You get that through going to traditional supervision. You get that through talking to your peers. You get that through basically learning the concepts of therapy, right? And none of this is bad. Conceptual understanding is, I love theory. I love taking deep dives into, kind of, what makes people tick and thinking about that. But in a lot of ways, it's like, learning how a piano is built as opposed to actually learning the scales of the piano. And that takes us in actually playing the piano. So that takes us to this idea of procedural learning. And procedural is learning by doing, or as somebody in the deliberate practice consultation group said the other day, it's where the rubber meets the road. It's actually what happens within clinical encounters between the therapist and the client, and how do we actually learn to do the things, the procedure that goes into the skills that we're trying to learn. So again, it's not that we're not saying conceptual bad, procedural good. We're saying we have overworked our conceptual muscles, and we need to learn how to do the procedural. We need to learn to become more like pilots who know, okay, here's what we do when there's an emergency. Here are the steps that we need to take. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to help you to understand that process. Understand what an actual procedural learning process, as developed through deliberate practice, looks like. And that's what the good folks at Sentio have developed. All right. Alycia, Ariana, how we doing? Thumbs up? Everything good? Okay, great. All right. So this is deliberate practice. And what's another cool thing about deliberate practice is that, as I said, it could be applied to any field where it's performance based. So if there's a performative part of it, you can go back and you can practice the skills. But what's especially cool about it is that it's model agnostic. So what does that mean? It means that it could apply to, I don't care if you're a DBT therapist, or if you're a CBT or psychodynamic, or narrative therapist. These ideas can be applied to all that. So what does it do? What do you actually do? So the first thing that you do is that you identify a skill deficit. I notice that when I'm with my clients, I get really nervous, or, I don't know how to start a session in a way that leaves enough open space, or I'm too focused on problem solving and not enough on letting feelings come into the room. So those are the identification of a deficit, right? And then you establish small learning goals. So you actually give people, here are the steps to get better at this small deficit that you have. And then you actually rehearse this. And you rehearse it with an expert, with somebody who can say, oh, I think you're doing good there, but I think that you need to do this part a little bit better. And that is adjusted by the scale of difficulty. right? So basically somebody's saying, yeah, I think you're struggling here, and I think you got this part, but let's really focus in on this small part of the skill that you're working on. And this is a task that if you're really learning this, throughout a career, this is what actually helps people to get better. And especially in an impossible profession like ours, there's just no end to the skills that we can work on to get better. All right. So, how did Sentio go about this? Well, Sentio started going about this. What they did is they took the already existing models. So now there's over 20 of these books, all the way to like career coaching is a newer one, or psychedelics in psychotherapy, right? I mean, so this can be applied to anything. And what they did is they asked the top practitioners in these different fields, hey, can you tell us what are the skills that make up your particular model? And let's work together to break them down. So Tony Ruminaire and Alexander Vosh, who are really the kind of, the founders of Sentio and have really driven the program forward, they have published all these books with top authors in the field, and they're amazing. They take 12 skills and they break them down into their respective parts. And then, you can learn how to do, empathic listening through EFT. Uh, or you can learn to do, a psychodynamic skill like interpreting transference, say, like you can, and it actually breaks these skills down. So great books, great for a classroom, great overall learning. However, what you're here to do today is to see what does this actually look like in a supervision. How does somebody comes into supervision with you, right? And they've got this, they come in and they, they bring in their clinical challenge, what's going on for them, and how would you actually apply deliberate practice to that? And there's a couple papers that were recently published that really spell out how the Sentio supervision model works. So Sentio has developed a supervision model, and what they've done is they've applied this model to their counseling center and now have all this great research about how do you actually do this. They have the framework for it called the Sentio Supervision Model, which relies completely on deliberate practice ideas. And they've got now the research and the outcomes to show that this is actually working. So that's going on now at the Sentio MFT program. And these are fun articles. You see the links there. The one that I wrote, Deliberate Practice Supervision in Action, actually looks at working with one of my supervisees and explains sort of over time the work that we did. Great. Okay, so at Sentio, how do we create this environment? And you don't need all this, but this is what's helped us to create this environment where we can do really deep dive into deliberate practice. All sessions are videotaped, routine outcome monitoring for every session, and we have this expert feedback through individual and group supervision, and deliberate practice skills are really baked into the whole program. And all supervision, and this is a really cool part, is that not only are the sessions recorded between the therapist and the client, also the supervision is recorded. So the supervisors are getting feedback in how they're learning deliberate practice. Okay. So this is what gives us all this rich material to really do deliberate practice. Now today you're going to see a way that you can do deliberate practice you can take some of this home. Oh, and you're going to be able to do this through the Sentio Supervision Model. Okay, the Sentio Supervision Model is a 7-step model that basically spells out what the framework would look like for doing deliberate practice in a supervision session. And I'm just going to run through this real quick because we're actually going to switch in just a moment to a role play where I'm gonna play the trainee and Alicia's going to play my supervisor. But just a quick primer on this. So there's a supervision preparation form, which we're going to see in just a minute. We're going to identify a client challenge. Then we're going to see what was the deficit. What was the way that the therapist responded to the client challenge that left something to be desired, that needed some work, that needed some help. And then the supervisor is going to identify a learning goal. What's going to be the goal for this to address this therapist deficit? And then the key part, this is really where, a lot of this is going to look familiar up to step 5, but this is really where deliberate practice is quite different, is that we are actually going to rehearse this repeatedly until we can see that the trainee or the supervisee has made a noticeable improvement. And that's going to be done not only through the supervisor watching, but also through sort of, checking in, scale of 1 to 10, how hard was this for you? That's going to be a part of it too. And then, based on all of the behavioral rehearsal, the supervisor, and we're probably not going to see this today, but the supervisor will say, okay, you worked on this. Why don't you go and take this and work on it at home, for another 10 minutes, and I think you'll be ready to try this next time you go into your session. So this is what makes up deliberate practice through the Sentio Supervision Model. It's not the only model, but it is a model that has been taken and really deliberate practice skills have been applied to it. Alycia, Ariana, anything to add before we transition to our next? Are we doing good? All right, cool. Well, now what we're going to do is, so let me give you a link here, and Ariana is also going to put it in the chat. So I'm going to stop the share for a minute. This is the supervision preparation form. And I'm now going to transform before your eyes into a trainee who's going to come in with my case that we're going to work on, me and Alycia are going to work on. And I'm going to start by reading this supervision preparation form that I've come into session with. And then we'll go back and we're going to see some video of me working. So here we go. All right, Alycia, why
Hi,
don't you
Jason.
take
Good to
over?
see you.
Hi, start again. Let's get this.
Okay. Hi, Jason. Good to see you. Did you fill out your preparation form and bring a video clip today?
I sure did. I sure did. I brought in my client MJ,
Okay.
and he is a man in his 30s. He's in his early 30s, and he struggled with anxiety since his late teens. He describes himself as a classic overachiever and says he's always felt pressure to be perfect, especially at work. He currently works at a fast-paced corporate setting where he often stays late, takes on extra tasks, and he has difficulty saying no. He reports frequent worry about being judged or not meeting expectations. He has some supportive friendships, but he avoids opening up to others about his struggles, which adds to his sense of isolation.
Great. Okay.
And yeah, and I'd say my challenge with him has been that, I've been trying to bring in some CBT skills to target, to really work on his perfectionism and things like thought records and behavioral experiments and practicing more behavioral self-talk and like sort of mindfulness stuff. The challenge is that I haven't found a way to like naturally introduce these skills in the
Yeah.
session, and I'm unsure how to engage him with these tools without pushing too hard or harming the alliance that feels a little, like I'm just still trying to build it.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. That's really helpful. Thank you. Do you have your video clip ready?
Yeah, let me show you. Hang on.
Look. Anything that we need to know about this piece that you're showing?
No, it was just a good example that I found of trying to work with some of these skills with him, and so yeah, so I'll show you that.
Yeah, so I have this kind of big presentation at my work next week, and I'm really anxious about it because I know I think I might screw it up, and I'm really worried about the evaluation that I'll get around it and how people might judge me if I don't do a good job. So I'm really stressed about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've got some great tools that we can use for this. I've got some good ideas about, kind of behavioral and kind of relaxation techniques that you can use. I've found them to be very helpful.
Yeah, Sure. I mean, I feel like I should probably tell you more about kind of what's going on at work, so like you kind of understand where the anxiety comes from.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds good. I really think that these tools will be helpful. I mean, I really think that these are like the kind of thing that, regardless of what we talk about, that you'll be able to use them not only for this, but all the time for stress.
Okay. Maybe can I just tell you about kind of this boss I have, how he's been talking to me recently?
Okay, perfect. Thank you for bringing that clip in. I think that's a really good one for us to work with.
Yeah, okay, good.
So we're just going to go through the model here. So in that clip that you shared, looking at step 3, so notice that your client is saying to you that he wants to tell you more about kind of what's going on with him and what's causing the anxiety, and a little bit more detail about this presentation and these fears he has coming up. And I think what might be happening is he's really in this feeling space and really wanting to share that with you and maybe feel some connection around that. And so I think that's kind of the space that he's coming and he's in this clip in the beginning. And then moving to step 4. So when your client shares that with you, that he's wanting to talk about what's coming up, you brought in, as you mentioned, some CBT skills, some meditation skills that you're really good at and you think would really help him and you know is really helpful for anxiety. And I'm assuming your intention there is kind of like you stated, and they're really wanting to give him tangible skills to walk away with to deal with his anxiety. Is that correct, or are there more to the intention?
Yeah, like I just think that it would really help him
Yeah.
if he just, would work on some of these skills, and I think that would be just a huge help to him.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And it seems like the client, in how he's reacting, there's a little bit of reluctance, or there's kind of something else that's kind of weighing on him that he's wanting to get to first. I don't know if you kind of sense that as we watch the clip back.
Yeah, I did feel like I mean, I don't know, like I started to feel like I was kind of like trying to force it down his throat a little bit, or like he didn't he but I didn't quite know what else to do there.
Yeah, yeah. Perfect. Yeah, that's really good noticing. And I think this why this intervention might be keeping you stuck is I think there's kind of this in-between place that he's needing to go before he's kind of hearing some of these interventions that you're right are really good for anxiety and I think could be really beneficial for him. But there's kind of a slowing down that might need to happen and a little bit of kind of undoing the aloneness he might be feeling around this. And I think too, just thinking back to your prep form, you'd mentioned that he has a hard time saying no. He has a hard time opening up about his struggles. And it seems like in this clip, he's really kind of maybe open to opening up
Mm,
and feeling that
yeah.
safety with you that he could do that. So I think it's a really good opportunity to slow down there and stay with those feelings a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing that. So what do I do different?
Yeah, perfect, perfect. So for learning goal, I'm wondering how you feel about, when he first brings it up in the clip, what that would be like to just slow down and just kind of do some empathic kind of reflection, or, just slowing down with it in the way of, for example, if he's saying, I'm just feeling so stressed and overwhelmed, it's really kind of slowing down and just staying with that and just saying, yeah, you have so much stress right now, for example. Just kind of reflecting back a little bit and just kind of lingering there with him a little bit.
Okay.
How
Yeah.
does that feel?
Yeah, that sounds good. So basically just like not doing that what I was doing and just reflecting, just sort of saying back what he
Yeah,
said.
yeah, just slowing down with what he said and just kind of reflecting back and just kind of undoing that aloneness of being in that piece of
Yeah.
just
Okay.
so overwhelmed about this presentation. And
Yeah. Okay. Great. You want me to try it
yeah, so
again?
let's
You want
get
me to
up the
try?
clip and yeah, and we'll pause it at a place and then you can.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I have this kind of big presentation at my work next week, and I'm really anxious about it because I know I think I might screw it up,
Hmm.
and I'm really worried about the evaluation that I'll get around it and how people might judge me if I don't do a good job. So I'm really stressed about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've got some great tools that
Yeah, so I have this kind of big work next week, and I'm really anxious about it because I know I think I might screw it up,
Hmm.
and I'm really worried about the evaluation that I'll get around it and how people might judge me if I don't do a good job. So I'm really stressed about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like you're stressed about work.
Okay. Okay. How did that feel to you?
It felt like I was just kind of repeating one thing back to him. I don't know if that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, I like that you slowed down with what he was saying and you did repeat back that stress is there, which I think is really good. I'm curious if we tried it again and just even just slowing down your tone, your words, just like 20 to 30% of like, yeah, kind of lingering even. Sounds like there's so much stress around this presentation.
Okay, should I try again?
So yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
If I don't do a good job, so I'm really stressed about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds to me like you want to do good at work.
Okay. Okay. How did that feel to you going a little bit slower, trying a little bit different language?
I think the slowness, it felt kind of weird to go slow like that. And I think that part of it felt a little weird, but I think I see what you're saying. Like I was so like wanting to like get to the skill. I think there's some I'm seeing that. Yeah, but I didn't quite know like how to repeat. Yeah, like I don't know if I got yeah. So that
Yeah,
that that
yeah,
part of it.
that's super helpful. And I think too, it will feel more comfortable the more we do practices. You know, he does have a speed because he's in his anxiety, and like you named, you have this desire to get to these skills. And I think by slowing down, you're really symbolizing this is important. You're important. Let's slow down right here. I'm hearing like
Mm,
so much stress.
yeah.
Trying it again and just knowing that it can feel uncomfortable at first, but we're really wanting to just slow down with it because this is important.
Yeah. Okay.
People might judge me if I don't do a good job, so I'm really stressed about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hearing that you're stressed about work and that you've got a presentation and that you want to learn how to deal with it.
How did that feel on a scale of 1 to 10?
Still feels hard. Like
Yeah,
it's like I would put this at like maybe like I don't know because I'm so used to like being problem solving kind of
yeah,
guy. I think I'd put this at like a 7 or 8 maybe. Like I'm nervous doing it. I feel like my hands are really tight and like my body's super tight. Like I just
yeah,
feel like it just feels weird.
yeah. Okay, so that's good for us to know because we're definitely watching. We want you to be in that zone in the middle where you're feeling like you're learning, but you're not flooded. So maybe just kind of like shaking out your body a little bit, and we'll just kind of do one
Mhm.
more if it feels
Yeah. Okay.
comfortable.
Yeah.
And maybe let's just like shorten it up a little bit and just say, oh, so much stress. And just
Mm.
that. So we're just practicing kind of that slowness and reflection and just making it really simple to just see how that feels.
Yeah. So I like that. I just wrote that down.
Perfect.
Okay. Great. So I'm gonna try that.
Me if I don't do a good job, so I'm really stressed about it.
Yeah. So much stress.
How was that?
Good. I just had trouble getting it out at the end, but it was nice to just know what to say and like
Yeah,
I did feel a little bit loose. I felt just like having kind of knowing that I didn't have to like
yeah.
do so much. That actually was kind of helpful.
Good, good. And I think that's a good answer. So if we go back to that 1 to 10, where do you feel like it is when we're just doing the slowness and just repeating back one piece?
I just feel it in my breath there. Like I'm down to it's still hard. Like I feel like I need to like say this a couple different ways in order to like have it like in my brain to remember to do it. So, but it feels I'm feeling more relaxed.
Good, good. Okay, let's try it again and kind of see how it feels.
Okay.
Do a good job, so I'm really stressed about it.
Yeah. So much stress.
That one sounded better. How did it feel to you?
Good, good. I actually, yeah, I think it's getting better. It's getting
Great.
a little easier.
Yeah, let's keep practicing it then. I think we're in the right spot.
So just go again. Okay.
Do a good job, so I'm really stressed about it.
Yeah, that sounds like so much stress.
How was that?
It feels good. Yeah, it's feeling better. It still feels like I'm just like kind of I feel like it's not quite mine yet.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
feel
So
like I'm
let's
like
say,
saying what you say, kind
yeah,
of,
perfect.
which is
So
good. But
yeah, and I noticed you kind of looking down at what you wrote. So I'm curious what it would be like to use your own words and maybe even if you're able to really look at your client and just kind of repeat back whatever feels authentic to you. And it can be just short and slow.
yeah, okay.
That I'll get around it and how people
Actually, I'm
might
going to
judge
watch it from the
me.
beginning just so I can see the whole thing.
Yeah, so I have this kind of big presentation at my work next week, and I'm really anxious about it because I know I think I might screw it up, and I'm really worried about the evaluation that I'll get around it and how people might judge me if I don't do a good job. So I'm really stressed about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hearing that you are really feeling like you might be evaluated and judged in what you're doing.
Yeah. How did that one feel?
It was interesting, like I actually like I could actually hear his words.
Yeah.
I actually was like hearing the words, and that felt a little bit better. It still feels like I'm kind of like I just feel like I'm kind of forcing it out of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that part of it is hard, but at least I feel like I'm hearing his words a little bit.
Yeah, when I was kind of just imagining being your client and hearing that, it felt really good. Like you reflected back what was said and kind of in a little bit different language, like right there with him. So I really liked how you did that. And I think just in any new skill, it's not natural yet. And so we just keep practicing until it feels kind of more organic and natural and also with your homework, but this is looking really good.
Yeah. Can I try one more time? Just because
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So
And then yeah, okay. So I kind of liked watching more of him just so I could
I
kind
think
of
that's a good
because the thing I just say I was actually starting to feel it a little bit more.
idea. Yeah.
Big presentation at my work next week, and I'm really anxious about it because I know I think I might screw it up, and I'm really worried about the evaluation that I'll get around it and how people might judge me if I don't do a good job. So I'm really stressed about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like you're really stressed about this big presentation that's coming up. And it sounds like you're kind of worried that you're going to be judged for it.
That sounds really good. How did that one feel?
Good. Good. I don't know. I like that. I don't know what to say at the like what do you say? Do you just stop at the end or do you say what do you say at the end that at the end there? Do you just sort of wait or sit or
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's fine to just kind of let that land and see. We don't always have to say a question. It can just be a statement of like, wow, there's so much stress. And then the client might pick that up and respond or might not. We can say, does that feel accurate to you? If it's feeling like it's needing more of a question. But how that was, I thought that was really good because you're just really reflecting back what he's saying and letting him know that you're hearing him and you're with him.
okay. Yeah, I think so. Let me I just want to really like get it inside me. So I'm gonna, or what do you think?
Yeah, let's practice again. Yeah.
Okay.
I have this kind of big presentation at my work next week, and I'm really anxious about it because I know I think I might screw it up, and I'm really worried about the evaluation that I'll get around it and how people might judge me if I don't do a good job. So I'm really stressed about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hearing that you have this big presentation at work and that, that you're really stressed about it and that you're worried that you're going to get judged by your colleagues.
How did that feel to you? And how did that feel to
So much better. Like, yeah, like if it was like it's like it's like down to like a 3 or a 4 now.
Great, great. And I think another piece too for if we have time, we could do, or for homework. And just in this short clip you have, there's kind of this separate second opportunity where you kind of tried to introduce the CBT and then he kind of brought it back. I think that would be a really nice place for homework to have a little bit different point to practice the same skill with.
Okay, so just go back and watch the second part of it and just try
The same skill.
the same skill. Okay, great. And can you help me remember, like, what did it's just basically
Kind of empathic reflection. So we slowed down, kind of just you internally slowing down language, and then reflecting back the feelings that you're hearing.
great. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good work.
All right. So thank you, Alycia. That was fun. All right. So what I want to do now is I'm actually gonna hand it over to Ariana here, and Ariana's gonna kind of walk us through what do we see there? What happened in that supervision hour that was happening? So Ariana, can you give us a recap here?
Okay, so the first thing we did was we looked at the supervision prep form and kind of looked at how the supervisee is conceptualizing the client and conceptualizing the problem. And then the second thing we did was we watched the videotape, and sometimes the videotape shows us the problem, but sometimes you got to keep watching to find it. But luckily it was pretty obvious in this clip. So we watch the clip, then we pause it. Alycia identified what Jason was doing that wasn't working. And then she identified what he could try instead. And then there was a lot of, there were probably like 7 to 8 skill rehearsals, which is great. That's what we want. Usually when I'm doing this, I try to get a minimum of at least 3 practices on the skill. So you both went above and beyond. Of the behavioral rehearsal, each time Alycia kind of gave some feedback, gave Jason something a little bit different to try. And then at the end, there's a homework assignment of usually practicing that skill or maybe like stretching a little bit in that skill so that the supervisee can practice it on their own outside of supervision.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. Great. And you could see in that one so I came in with with the supervision preparation form. I thought that what I wanted to work on was, this sort of how to do these CBT skills, how to get my client. Alycia, my supervisor, excuse me, she correctly saw that, hey, I think what he needs to work on before he does this is empathic listening and reflection. And so oftentimes, especially with younger trainees, what you'll find is that their perception of what the deficit is, that their deficit, and sometimes even the client challenge is different from what you see in the tape or what you're seeing in the transcript or what you're hearing in the description. You don't necessarily need a videotape in order to do this. You can do it with a transcript. You can do it just by, I think transcript is the second best option. And then hearing a bit about the case, you can sometimes pick out, oh, it sounds like the client challenge is this, and it sounds like the deficit that, is this, and you can then go into rehearsal based on that. Anything else, Alycia? What was it like doing that? Any other, thoughts about what happened there?
Yeah, it was good. It felt pretty accurate, and just so often, like you said, someone comes in with a certain skill or what they think it is, and then kind of like figuring that out and finding the skill and just the practices. And I think for the supervisor, really trying to keep people in that proximal zone of development where they're not flooded, but also that they're being stretched and kind of, even if you're noticing multiple things to work on, kind of picking one thing at a time. And it was also a really good example of it was a little bit too much for you, and so we kind of had to like go back a skill. And I think that was like a big learning for me in the residency, is like less is more. So
Yeah. And I actually want to go back here. I mean, so let's look at this. So what we did is we identified my skill deficit, right? Which was that I was not using enough empathic listening and empathic reflection. And then we established a small learning goal, right? And you could see Alycia sort of did this in real time, which is really the art of deliberate practice supervision as applied to psychotherapy, is you got to come up with something on the fly. And you could see that she kind of, there was some conceptual, you use these beautiful phrases like being less alone. You had that nice phrase, and but at the same time, you really gave me some concrete things that this goal of empathic listening, and then you had me run through it a number of times, right? And each time you were giving me feedback. And I saw somewhere in the chat that it said, there was an element of safety to it. Like you can see how important it is to have that kind of safety. Yeah, you're doing great. I love this. And here is where I think that, we should be working. And one of the big revelations, I think, and I think Alycia and Ariana can testify to this, is that trainees, supervisees, they actually want to hear your feedback, even when it's not positive. I think in the field we overdo the "you're doing great." We worry, I think, a little too much about actually telling people this is where I think the deficit lies. And some people have a little, issue with the word deficit, but or this is where I think your challenge lies. But I think people need to hear it, they want to hear it, but mainly what they want to hear is, okay, what do I do about it? And that's what's so wonderful about this model is that it actually tells you, okay, here is what you're going to do about it. We're not going to, give you, a long description of what to do, understanding of borderline personality disorder. We are going to actually tell you how to work with a client who feels very alone, and your job is to actually join them more, is which what we saw in the role play. So, moving right along. Thank you all for watching that. We're going to tell you a little bit about what we have to offer, and then I think we got some time for some questions. So, Alycia and Ariana, you guys are doing some cool stuff. Tell us what's coming up for you guys.
Yeah, we have a couple offerings we're really excited about that are coming up. We're starting a CEU study group using those books that Jason had showed, that there's 20 or more books for the different modalities, kind of working through some of those modalities and learning them using the deliberate practice model. And then we also have an upcoming training on October 25th, which is a 6 CEU one that counts for supervision renewals for people for really going into depth with this model, coming up on October 25th. And then we have another offering of that happening in March, which will be the same one.
Great. Okay, and I had the pleasure of working with Alycia and Ariana in the supervision preparation, in the supervision group, that we're going to talk about in a sec. But I can attest to just what a wonderful learning environment they create. Okay, so monthly at Sentio, we do a deliberate practice consultation group, totally drop in. You can be licensed, you can be unlicensed, come as you are. You can drop in when you want. You can become a dedicated member of the group. And we do skills sometimes, and then we also do case presentations and we have people practice skills. So all the stuff that you saw here today, we're doing that in the deliberate practice monthly consultation group. Alex's class, learning from Alex deliberate practice is such a treat. Starting January, he is starting a new one, and you get a certificate for doing it. And it's sort of especially if you're outside of California and Washington, and you want to get involved and you want to learn some kind of how this works, come through to Alex's class. I've been dropping in and totally enjoying it. And the big plug, which we're hoping, that some of you will be interested in, especially if you're in California and Washington, we do a 1-year residency, small groups. I think there's like 6 of us now. And each week we get together and we watch tapes of the supervisors leading their supervision sessions. And then we go through and we actually learn each step of this model. And it is, I mean, I went through it myself, and I can attest to just not only did it change how I think about supervision, but completely transformed my thinking about just my clinical work, just how I listen into my clients in therapy. 50 hours, work trade program, so you don't have to pay anything. You just give your time. Email me if you want to talk about it at all. I'd love to chat about it. You can find me on LinkedIn. We can chat there. But if you got any questions, please reach out. Ariana, Alycia, what did you think of the program?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm happy to field any questions too. I think what I love the most about the supervision residency is it trains you to start thinking about your supervisee's skills instead of like how are they conceptualizing or how are they conceptualizing? It's really like what are the skills that they're using when they're sitting with this client and how can they practice them? So it was a completely different mindset shift for me and how I work with people.
Yeah, yeah, and you see a lot of that. You see a lot of, hey, I'm trying to work from an AEDP model, and here's what I'm doing, or a CBT model, which we saw demonstrated here. And actually, when you watch the tape, what you often find and is, oh, I think actually we need to go back and learn some basic therapy skills. And so it's a real way of kind of, because I think that we do, models are great. I think, they provide a wonderful structure, but at the same time, we do. I think we need to also just learn our basic therapy skills. Alycia, any thoughts, comments?
Yeah, for me, it was amazing. It really enhanced my supervision and how I approach it, how I'm working with people, what I'm thinking of. And I think too, just even for myself, I think before I did the residency, I was working on models, but now you could ask me at any time and I know the exact skill I'm working on. So I'm also thinking of that for myself, and I've seen it really enhance my work with my own clients too. So it's just been so valuable, and to have a year where you're working with someone doing a model and then someone's watching you and giving you feedback, and then you're also getting to watch other people do their work in their way and get feedback was just so valuable. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what's cool about learning, I mean, I think that the opposite becomes true is that models become so much easier to learn once you know the steps that kind of go in, because it turns out that a lot of what makes up models are sort of, a lot of the same things. So you can kind of reverse engineer it too. All right. Thank you guys. Questions? Can we have some contact info for follow-ups? Yes, you can find everything. Once you guys Ariana and Alycia, put your email in the chat if you're comfortable, your website. I'll put mine here too. Questions, comments, concerns?
I
Thank
was
you.
gonna,
Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, go ahead. I can wait. I'll wait.
No, no, go ahead. I was just going to thank people for their comments.
Oh, okay. I was going to add that the APA deliberate practice books that we had like a picture of, Alycia and I don't know how long ago, maybe a year ago, we started meeting up for a book club with the EFT one, and we just practiced the skills back and forth. And that's been pretty great. And now we have the AEDP one, so we'll be practicing those skills. But it's pretty exciting just to like slowly get better and better. And Alycia alluded to this, but doing the residency made me obviously way better at supervision, but way better at being a therapist.
Yes, yes, I think that that's for me too. It's really transformed my work. The Wendy asks, yes, on our she asks, will this be available? All this is available, including you can look at the AEDP. We've made webinars about the AEDP skills. We've made EFT skills. So if you look at the Sentio channel on YouTube, you can find all kinds of webinars that actually break down, these skills, and you'll be able to find this webinar as soon as we get to posting it. Thank you, Allison. So needed for therapists. Annette, thank you. I would love to support an IFS application. We would love you to support an IFS application. I mean, what's really cool about this is that Alycia and Ariana, for example, just came with such a rich background of training. So you can bring in whatever you want to deliberate practice. And then as you start to do the deliberate practice, you can actually start breaking down whatever model you really know well into these skills. And so, the IFS book has not been written yet for deliberate practice. So, Jennifer, this is your moment. All right, thank you, Jennifer. Thumbs up. I like it. Contact info we got. Thank you, Michelle. Great, thank you. All right. Well, if there's not any last minute questions, we just want to thank you so much for joining us today. Oh, I'm a family therapist supervisor, sit behind the screen. Your 2, 3 students are seeing the families, but this is a beautiful add-on for supervision. Great. And Deidre, I think just start playing around with it. I think that that's this is also new, and like I said, Sentio is just one model. Like the main thing is just to watch the moments, the interaction between the therapist, what the client says, how the therapist responds, how the client responds back to the therapist, and then taking that little interaction and thinking what skill could we work on there and having your trainees work in that area with rehearsals. That's basically what we're doing. Is there a Yes, there is for couples therapy. No, there's not, Allison. There is, you could be the one. There is for family DBT, CBT, I think, but there is a CBT book and there is an EFCT book. But that one, the CBT for couples therapy, I don't believe has been created yet. But all that can be found on the Amazon, on the link that was earlier in the chat. Awesome. Okay. Thanks all so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
This webinar is made possible by the Sentio Marriage and Family Therapy Program. Visit us at www.sentio.org.